Hello, my name is Sonali and I welcome you all to the latest episode of Around the World in 7 Days. Today, a major portion of international trade is carried out in the US dollars. That's why most countries have to depend on this particular currency for their imports and exports. And for this very reason, the US dollar has a very unique, special and privileged position in the arena of international trade. However, these attributes also give rise to some arrogance in the US policymakers who behave like a watchdog of the global system. They take decisions on the basis of their whims and fancies without any concern for other countries. And sometimes, these decisions are so rash and detrimental to the economies of other nations that even the entire economic system faces the peril of collapse. But now, it seems that this situation is not going to last for long. Of late, many countries have hinted that they are no longer in the mood to tolerate the reckless attitude of a hegemon like America. These countries are now preferring to do their bilateral trade in local currency instead of the US dollar. In this, China is also actively involved in trying to swing the needle in its favor. It is engaged in persuading the countries of the world to do business in its currency, that is, yuan instead of the dollar. In layman's terms, it means that most of the countries of the world, including China and Russia, are working towards de-dollarization. India is also not far behind in this initiative and is actively nudging countries to trade in rupee. So far, 18 countries have entered into agreements with India regarding trade in rupee. And now, Bangladesh has become the 19th country to be moving ahead with the same idea of trade in local currency in India. It has agreed to trade with India in rupee and Bangladeshi taka. According to Bangladesh Bank, India and Bangladesh have decided to do their bilateral trade in rupee instead of dollar. For this, the value of the currency of both countries will be decided on the basis of fluctuations in the value of the dollar. However, the central banks of both countries are yet to finalize the modalities of the process. The question is, why did Bangladesh agree to do business with India in rupee instead of dollar? What difference does it make? Also, what will be the effects of de-dollarization on the world? Will it end the role of the US dollar in the international trade? We will try to find answers to all these questions one by one. But first of all, let's take a look at the recent decision of India and Bangladesh. Actually, last year in the month of December, the issue of rupee trade came up for discussion in a ministerial meeting of the two countries. In the follow-up, the issue was also discussed in the meeting of the National Economic Council of Bangladesh in the month of March. Then a delegation from India went to Bangladesh to further discuss this issue, where they discussed the nitty-gritty with Bangladeshi bankers. According to reports, for the time being, it will be implemented as a pilot program. Initially, the rupee trade will be done through 4 banks. These include Bangladesh, Sonali Bank and Eastern Bank, and India's SBI and ICICI Bank. These banks will open Vostro and Nostro accounts in each other's countries. That is, Sonali and Eastern Bank will open their accounts in India's SBI and ICICI Bank, while SBI and ICICI Bank will open their accounts in these two banks of Bangladesh. As a result, the local currency will not have to be converted into dollars for transactions, and the exchange will be directly from rupee to taka and vice versa. This means that Bangladeshi traders importing from India will be able to pay the price by converting Bangladeshi taka into rupees at the rate decided by these banks. Similarly, Indian traders will be able to pay the price directly in Indian rupees in case of import from Bangladesh. In this way, The import cost of both countries, especially Bangladesh, will be saved to some extent by transacting in Indian rupees instead of dollars. Now the question is, who will benefit from this initiative? Basically, 14% of Bangladesh total imports are from India. It includes expenditures incurred by Bangladeshi nationals on healthcare, tourism, and shopping in India. In the financial year 2021-22, Bangladesh exported goods worth 200 crores dollars to India. In comparison, goods and services worth 1,619 crore dollars were imported from India during the same period. In this way, Bangladesh trade deficit with India in the financial year 2021-22 stood at 1,419 crore dollars. In such a situation, if the trade is done in taka and rupee, then there will be less pressure on Bangladesh foreign exchange reserves. It can be understood in such a way that earlier Bangladesh had to pay 1,619 crore dollars in US dollars for imports from India. If this payment was made directly in rupees, Bangladesh would still have a foreign exchange reserve of 1,619 crore dollars, which it could use for imports from other countries. Apart from this, it is also a fact that in the case of import, Bangladeshi taka has to be first converted into dollars and then dollars into rupee. This is a time-consuming process and also increases the exchange cost. In such a situation, if the transaction is done in rupees, then there will be no need to go through these multiple stages of currency conversion. This will reduce the cost of the merchants and also save the time taken in the payment. Also, transactions in Indian rupees instead of dollars will save some amount of export cost as well, thus making the products cheaper. Hence, this initiative can be a win-win deal for both countries. After this, the next pertinent question is whether de-dollarization is going to end the role of the US dollar in international trade. Although the US dollar showed a strong presence after the First World War itself, but after the end of the Second World War, it took the place of world's most important reserve currency. To this end, it displaced the United Kingdom's pound sterling as the world's primary reserve currency. For this, America entered into an agreement during the Bretton Woods Conference of 44 countries. This agreement officially recognized the US dollar as the primary reserve currency of the world. One major reason for this was that America had the world's largest gold reserves to back this currency. Since then, the US dollar has dominated the world market. There are, however, other stories as well behind the till now supreme position of the US dollar. We will talk about this in some other episode. The central role of the US dollar in global trade has also increased the US hegemony in the global system. And now, many countries are looking forward to countering this. Last year, when Russia invaded Ukraine, the US and the EU countries started imposing sanctions on Russia. The success of these sanctions primarily hinged on the dollar being the first preference in global trade. Sanctions on Russia nudged countries into looking for alternatives. Since then, many countries have decided to do away with dollar in bilateral trade. For example, Iran has stopped trading in dollars with China and Russia. Similarly, Saudi Arabia, which has a major stake in OPEC, has said that it may completely abandon the petrodollar and instead may accept petro-yuan. Apart from this, a few days back, French President Emmanuel Macron also said that Europe should reduce its dependence on the US dollar. Meanwhile, Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva was on his first state visit to China last month. During the visit, he insisted that BRICS countries should consider leaving the US dollar and should contemplate doing business in some alternative currency. In this, China is also actively trying to present the yuan as an alternative to the US dollar. Although Russia has been using the yuan quite extensively in international trade, it is also considering launching a joint BRICS currency. Significantly, before Bangladesh, 18 countries started settling foreign trade with India in rupee. These include Russia, Singapore, Sri Lanka, Botswana, Fiji, Germany, Guyana, Israel, Kenya, Malaysia, Mauritius, Myanmar, New Zealand, Oman, Seychelles, Tanzania, Uganda, and the United Kingdom. In these circumstances, the US dollar seems to be losing its shine and supremacy. Well, it will be interesting to see if the US dollar loses its dominance in international trade, which currency will rise to the occasion. As of now, some economists are predicting tough competition between the Chinese yuan and the Indian rupee. So that's all in today's episode. We will meet again in the next episode, but before that, let's note down the question based on today's story. The ongoing process of de-dollarization in the global trade is the result of America's repeated geopolitical blunders. Do you agree? Substantiate your views with some recent examples.